All right. So thanks very much, Esther. We've invited all of our ENERGY STAR partners because we know that even if your primary relationship with ENERGY STAR is based on your professional life, even with a school district, a hospital, or corporation, you may well be an active member of a religious community. As such, you're probably joining us today to better help your congregation save money and reduce pollution through efficiency. Your fellow members of the congregation may just call this good stewardship. Next slide, please. So let's review a few basics. We are going to have a lot of new information today, but just a reminder that why buildings are important is that commercial and industrial plants combined generate about 45% of our carbon dioxide emissions. The next slide. And more to point for all of you, over a couple of decades of ENERGY STAR partnership work, we've learned that about 30% of the energy that is paid for and consumed in the buildings is wasted. And it's not willful waste, but often the budgets aren't there for the best equipment. But very often we need to look at our operations and maintenance policies and practices. Next, please. So associating with ENERGY STAR is something we want you to consider if you're not a partner already. We know that over 92% of American consumers recognize the label. They shop for the label when they're buying new equipment. And more to the point, in your buildings, the ENERGY STAR label can be earned on the building, and that's something to consider. Next slide, please. We have a kind of a special relationship with the faith community because EPA is congressionally mandated in our founding legislation in 1970 to protect human health. And I know from working with the faith community for so many years that human health is fundamental teaching of virtually every faith community. Also, not wasting what we have, not wasting money or natural resources, particularly resources we need to leave to our children and future generations. So to this end, we have tools and training and technical support. Our information is non-commercial, so we're not selling anything. It's reliable. We work to keep it updated. We have training to back up our tools and ongoing technical support. So we're going to be here for the long haul, and we want to develop a long-term working relationship. Next, please. Looking at what we've done in the last several years, we can account for about $450 billion, and counting more really, for the type of savings that Americans have achieved through ENERGY STAR products and training and tools. This is a lot of electricity. Who knows what 4 trillion kilowatt hours look like? But the metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions are solid and real. It's about 3 billion, and this is important to protecting human health and the natural resources that sustain us. Next, please. So one of our key tools is the Action Workbook for congregations. It's not a static tool. We update it literally several times a year as new resources at EPA and among our partners come to the fore. It's really it's a step-by-step guide in many ways, and it works very hard to speak to the professional facility manager as well as the volunteer on the green team in the congregation. There's a lot there for everyone, and you can work it at a lot of different levels. So the webinar today will track with the format of this Action Workbook, which you can download today in Spanish as well as English if you haven't already. Next slide, please. Again, over more than 2 decades of partnership with corporations and school districts and worship facilities and small businesses and manufacturers, we've learned that there's a pretty straightforward approach to successful energy management. And we're going to go through these steps. We understand that you may start off in the middle of this or that everything might not be a perfect fit for you, but these are generally the approaches that we found that work very well. Next slide. First of all, as with anything that is worthwhile and you're going to succeed at, you may have to make a commitment. Now, all of our tools and information is freely available online. We even have international companies and organizations all the time who can't join ENERGY STAR because we're domestic, and all of our tools are designed for American organizations, but they're so popular worldwide that we have a lot of use internationally. And you don't have to be a partner to take part in all we have to offer, but it helps us and it helps you a lot to join as an ENERGY STAR partner. An individual congregation can do this. We have denominations and interfaith groups and all kinds of different types of organizations that join ENERGY STAR. We have a partnership for a building owner operator as well as for an association. Next, please. Here's our first case study. Our very first congregation in the United States to earn ENERGY STAR certification was Plantation Baptist in Florida. And they really made the point that strategic operations and management, not just new equipment, but really doing the best you can with what you already have, is as important as anything. And then as you see here, Pastor Hunter aptly defines stewardship. We'll talk more about what certification actually means. Next, please. Okay, after you've made a commitment, you really have to know where you're starting to know where you're going. You need to establish a baseline for your current energy and water use, which in the Portfolio Manager tool we'll describe. You can track monthly or quarterly as you see fit, but this is a very powerful free online tool that we'll have a lot more to say about and show you how to learn more and get training and get technical support. There's a number of other things that you can do, and we'll talk about those. Next, please. Okay, at this point, I'm going to introduce my contractor and colleague from Energy and Security Group, Thayer Tomlinson, who does most of our training for congregations on the use of Portfolio Manager. Thayer, please.
Thank you, Jerry. Great to be here today and to give you some background information on the ENERGY STAR Portfolio Manager tool and some of the sure savers that we highlight in the action workbook. Looking at the poll questions, I noticed a majority of those who answered are not yet using Portfolio Manager in your house of worship, and would encourage you first and foremost to consider setting up a Portfolio Manager account. Jerry and I are always available to help you with answering questions or getting started in your account, and I'll walk through what makes Portfolio Manager so useful, especially when you're looking to reduce your energy and water use. So Portfolio Manager is a free, powerful online tool to help congregations understand and better manage costs and use of energy and water. It's already in use by over thousands of congregations in the U.S. and hundreds of thousands of commercial buildings. And let's see, I'll go to the next slide, please. So this is a tool that allows you to assess your whole building. You can put in you have to put in data on your operating use, some physical building information such as square footage, address and zip code, number of seats in the worship facility, and then you put in monthly utility bills. We recommend up to 24 months initially because it gives you a chance to start comparing where you were on a year-to-year basis. But by entering this data into Portfolio Manager, you're able to then assess your whole building consumption, track green power purchases if you make them, But really, I find the most important thing is tracking the changes in energy water use over time. In addition, you can track greenhouse gas emissions and costs, which many congregations find very useful, especially if they have a stewardship committee and they are reporting their overall emissions there. Next slide, please. And so once you put this data into Portfolio Manager, you can start running reports. And that's where you can look at what your demand looks like, how it's changing on a month-to-month and year-to-year basis, your water use, and take a look at what your ENERGY STAR score is. And what the ENERGY STAR score is, next slide please, is it will compare your worship facility to, on a 1 to 100 basis, to similar worship facilities across the United States. And I use the word similar here because what the benefit of Portfolio Manager is that it will compare your worship facility to those in similar zip codes, in heating and cooling zones, and that have similar size characteristics. So if you have a large, older facility in a high heating area, you're not being directly compared to a facility that may have a significantly different footprint and energy use. And those facilities that are in the top quartile, which would have a score of 75 to 100, are able to earn an ENERGY STAR score, or sorry, an ENERGY SCORE energy certification for their building. We've worked with worship facilities that have had a 1, and we've worked with those that have had 100. One thing I'd say, and I say to most groups as they're getting started in Portfolio Manager, that even when you first start benchmarking your facility, if you have a score of 1 or in that lower quartile, it really is an opportunity to make significant efficiency gains and really raise your score because you have a lot to probably work with. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Portfolio Manager has a number of resources. In addition to our team, there are live webinars, there are training videos, step-by-step fact sheets, and a help desk. Next slide, please. The help desk is highly used. I am a trainer in Portfolio Manager, and I help many people with their accounts. And I also utilize this help desk resource all the time. Not only are there frequently asked questions that are actually frequently asked questions, but there's the opportunity to send building information and questions directly to experts who can provide very detailed and specific answers if you have them. Next slide, please. Okay, so as part of step 2, once you've benchmarked your facility and you have an idea of where you are, we recommend looking for sure savers. And what we call sure savers are really the low-cost, no-cost opportunities for you to consider before you start making investments in larger energy and water efficiency improvements, like replacing large equipment such as an HVAC system. So I will walk through the sure savers and just give you some examples for both product opportunities and operation and maintenance opportunities for each of these. Next slide, please. As you can see, typical worship facility and energy use falls heavily on the space heating side. And this is really data from all worship facilities across the United States. So again, if you have a facility in Arizona, your energy use profile might look very different than this. But I think this graphic helps us see where a lot of energy use is going. One characteristic that we've noted is that as facilities get larger and larger, that lighting percentage of their overall energy use does go up. So that's an interesting characteristic, I think, when you look at lighting replacement options. Next slide, please. So the first SureSaver we'll go through is lighting, which is almost always the best and fastest payback option if you look at payback months for energy saved at cost. Key operation steps: turn off the lights when they're not in use. That's always one of our first recommendations, and that can happen with occupancy and vacancy sensors and daylighting sensors. The ENERGY STAR website contains a lot of very detailed technical information and excellent higher scale use information on a lot of these products and operations and maintenance suggestions that we'll be walking through. Additionally, the Action Workbook has a series of appendices, and for each of the SureSavers that I'm walking through, there's an appendix that will have detailed information on all of these topics. Looking at replacement with LED lights compared to incandescents or CFLs, and then starting to consider exit signs. If you've got exit signs that still have incandescent lighting, replace those with LED exit signs. Next slide, please. Okay, so a case study that we wanted to highlight is the Islamic Society of Boston Cultural Center, which was the first mosque in the country to earn the ENERGY STAR. And what I find really interesting about this story is that they received an energy assessment as well as some local utility audits, and based on those, upgraded more than 70% of the lights in their building, added motion sensors, and significantly reduced their energy use enough so that they were able to earn an ENERGY STAR. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next SureSaver is the windows and walls, which we also call the building envelope, and that would include, obviously, windows, walls, roof, and insulation. Some of the considerations for products and replacement, such as windows and roofs, would obviously be much higher cost opportunities. And so as a SureSaver, our first recommendations are to really walk through the property, find and seal leaks around the property, and consider weather stripping and other opportunities to just reduce the airflow between the outside and inside air. Next slide, please. Office equipment, as noted here, can often be overlooked, but can add a considerable cost to overall energy use at a facility. We recommend, when replacement's needed, always buy energy certified products. Many computers have automatic sleep and energy saving settings at this time, but it's always useful to even go through the facility in the evening or after your employees and staff members and colleagues have left, and just notice what electrical and office equipment appliances may be left on, because those still do draw power during the evening times. And ENERGY STAR has a great resource which is called Take Your Green to Work, and these are a series of signage, guides, technical information, energy-saving tips, flyers that you can use to highlight opportunities for energy efficiency in an office situation. And that link will allow you to download and access any of those materials. Next slide, please. This is just a brief screenshot of the different types of ENERGY STAR labeled products. ENERGY STAR works with manufacturers of dozens and dozens of consumer and office products to continually foster efficiency and performance improvements. And so you can see on this that office equipment has a long list of products that have earned the ENERGY STAR, as does electronics. And for some worship facilities that may have significant amounts of audio and video requirements, I'd consider you to take a look at some of the labeled products that are available for those as well. Next slide, please. So for your worship facilities that might have kitchen areas, we recommend looking at certified commercial food service equipment if you need to replace your equipment. If you have larger industrial kitchens, there's a large number of equipment options available, and there is an ENERGY STAR guide for commercial food service equipment that provides both detailed information on the products themselves and use recommendations. Additionally, keeping refrigerator and freezer seals clean and the coils clean, as well as making sure, as with the office equipment, to turn off appliances and use smart power strips. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the poll questions that I noticed for those of you that had done upgrades, so in addition to lighting upgrades, there were some of you that had also done some HVAC upgrades. Obviously, replacing your whole HVAC system would not be considered a low-cost, no-cost option, but in addition to looking at how to reduce your energy use from that system through operations and maintenance, we also highlight in the action workbook with an example of starting to look at replacement plans so that when your system fails, at some point it will, that you are ready to upgrade that system and ideally have a plan in place for efficient equipment that can do a quick change out of that system so that you are not left scrambling and purchase something that may be available right now but be of lower efficiency and potentially higher cost. Okay, next slide, please. So a congregation, Beth Israel in Pennsylvania, we included this case study for two reasons. One, to highlight what portfolio manager and more sophisticated energy benchmarking and tracking can achieve. This congregation was just tracking their energy use in a static spreadsheet and was doing month-to-month tracking. When they switched over and started using Portfolio Manager for energy tracking, we're able to really look at and isolate where they were seeing spikes in energy use. And based on that, devised a pretty comprehensive HVAC replacement plan that significantly reduced their energy use overall and improved their ENERGY STAR score significantly. I don't remember exactly the score improvement, but it was they were very pleased with the investment they made in those new resources. Next slide, please. And finally, water. Both hot and cold water do have energy associated with them. Obviously, hot water would require the heating of the water. So the best way to do this is reduce your overall water use. Obviously, we're also looking at water efficiency. So because you can benchmark your water use in Portfolio Manager, you're able to see what times of year you're using the greatest amount of water, and then look at where you might have leaks, how you can go find and fix leaks, and for the energy side of it, also to set the water temperatures only as hot as needed or to local code, so you are not heating water more than you need it heated. I'm now going to turn the presentation back to Jerry, who's going to walk us through a number of diverse resources for setting, implementing, and tracking goals, actually starting with EPA's WaterSense program.
Thank you, Thayer. Yeah, WaterSense is ENERGY STAR's sister program at EPA. In the way that we approach energy, WaterSense approaches water with voluntary labeling of products and equipment for a higher level of efficiency than the standard models. And you can see here they have achieved more than 20,000 product model certifications. Next slide, please. again, like ENERGY STAR, WaterSense pays special attention to commercial facilities and their water use. And along the same lines as ENERGY STAR, there are tools, training, tips, tech support, worksheets, and checklists, webinars, and case studies, all available at the WaterSense website. Next slide. And just in the last 2 weeks, I believe, the Office of Water at EPA has uploaded a great new guide for stormwater solutions, especially for congregations. I know from the last couple of years, hearing from congregations, especially in larger cities, that there are stormwater charges being assessed for congregations based on non-permeable surface like parking lots, sidewalks, roofing, etc. So this is a great guide. You'll find a lot in here about landscaping and ways to have a sustainable stormwater management to save money. Next slide, please. Now this is interesting. ENERGY STAR learned from our large corporate partners in our industrial program about something they initiated and call a treasure hunt. As you can see here, some of them got kind of out of control. You don't have to have a parrot on your shoulder to pursue what we call a treasure hunt. The idea is to engage your staff and participants, users of your building, in a search for energy and water savings, for dollar savings. And the unique thing is the idea is to bring in non-technical building occupants following, say, a professional energy audit or a professional upgrade. And what has gotten our attention is that we typically find savings of up to an additional 15% after already significant savings from professional activity. Next, please. We have a home page for Treasure Hunt. It's all there. We have a general 4-page guide. We have several treasure maps, and in fact, there's one specifically for worship facilities that addresses unique needs and interests of congregations. There is a pre-programmed Excel spreadsheet, we call a detail sheet, that you can organize and summarize opportunities and savings. And I would suggest taking a look at this homepage, at some of the videos from the founders of Treasure Hunt, people at Nissan and Staples and other leading corporations. Next, please. So we've always heard about energy audits, and energy audits are an important opportunity. But I think our take on it is not necessarily to rush into an energy audit first thing. I mean, that's a legitimate approach. But what we recommend is see what you can do for yourself with Sure Savers, with the no-cost, low-cost, often do-it-yourself things that can be done, especially for facility managers. And when you have congregation members that have time and talent, they may be plumbers, electricians, carpenters, architects. So you can achieve a lot of savings for yourself before you even bring in an energy audit. So make the energy auditor work a little harder for this. They're going to be looking at some of the larger items, the more significant equipment, HVAC and boilers, maybe solar things that maybe you can't do with on staff or in the congregation abilities and skills. You're often going to be touching base with your electric or gas utility in this process. They may have free audits available. Ask them. If they don't have them, ask them why not. Often it's the State Utility Regulatory Commission, or if it's a municipal utility, your city council, who will help be sure that you get some good services from your utility. Be sure and ask them about rebates for new efficient products and equipment. And in many cases, your energy auditor may represent a company that will provide finance, or what we call shared savings, in which you can install efficient new equipment for no money down. And then by sharing the savings from month to month, you will eventually pay for your new equipment, and then after that, all the savings belong to the congregation. So there are also some different levels of audits. So if you have questions about energy audits, please email us. We'll give you addresses. Next slide, please. So back on track with strategic energy management, setting goals. Once you're benchmarked, you will have a 1 to 100 score, and you'll know exactly where you stand relative to averages among other worship facilities. So this is very valuable. It just gives you a quick and changing update on where you stand on relative efficiency. Within Portfolio Manager, there are other things you can do. You can define goals, you can track goals, you can set up ways to track your project scope and timeline, looking at what your other organization goals may be, and prioritizing these over time. Next slide, please. Here's another case study that illustrates a different point, and that is Hope Christian Reformed Church was one of I think 10 or so other of the Christian Reformed denomination that worked with us in what we all called a boot camp over a series of months. I think it was 3-4 months or so, in which we had a monthly conference call and or webinar, especially for this denomination. We can do the same for any denomination or interfaith group. We found that this just worked really well. It got everyone comfortable with Portfolio Manager. They got comfortable asking questions, knowing they were in a support group. After fact, they could talk to one another. They were free to email us after the group talk. They could ask for what we would discuss in the next discussion group. So it really cements the relationship. So if you want to think about something like this, what we call the boot camp, just let us know and we'll help you organize it and we will offer it. This also illustrates a point in which a Chicago-based ENERGY STAR partner, a service and product provider partner named Gobi, which was an architectural firm, provided a free data verification for certification. For certification, we do require that a licensed architect or a registered professional engineer take a look at the data, be sure that there are not any unusual things going on, like a section of the building shut down over time, or new construction, or something might skew the score up or down. We just want to be sure it's all accurate and maintains integrity. So once Gobi Architectural Firm took a look, they found that there was, in fact, an error in calculations, and the score of the church went up from 78 to 83. Next slide, please. So back on track with strategic approaches here is creating the action plan. You're going to create a plan. You're going to track it. You want to know what's going on. You will have specific projects and timelines. As with any major project in the congregation, you're going to have people involved with specific responsibilities. You're going to have to assign resources and budget, and we can help you do that. Next slide, please. This takes a look at the St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church in Detroit. What we liked about them is the facility manager with other staff pretty much did it all. They finally brought in a contractor to update the boiler with a timer and some special controls. But basically, it was facility management staff with even no special funding. They worked within existing budget to do a few things a little differently, a little better, and they actually took them to a score in excess of 75 for certification. Next, please. So the action plan that you just created, it's important to track implementation. Who, where, what, when, how much, keeping in mind all the details, and we can help you with that. So things don't fall between the cracks. Don't get lost. Next, please. So evaluating, this means if you haven't been tracking month to month in Portfolio Manager, you certainly want to do that. Ideally, you wanted to have a baseline before you started any upgrades. And one of the great things about Portfolio Manager that we've seen congregations do is, I'm betting a lot of you, and our polls showed that some of you have already done some upgrades of lighting, HVAC, etc. You can go back and set your baseline prior to any upgrades you've done within a reasonable number of years, so that you can go back and see in Portfolio Manager exactly on a 1 to 100 basis what your upgrade did in the past. And especially for facility managers, we know what you're up against, and we're on your team. We know that you have a budget. You probably don't have enough resource in terms of staff and budget to do all that everyone wants to do in the worship facility. But Portfolio Manager arms you with objective calculations from EPA ENERGY STAR. You can generate all types of standard reports. You can create custom reports. And it's these reports with colorful graphs and charts that are very easy to understand that can help you as facility managers or just advocates for efficiency to be sure that the decision makers understand what you're achieving and give you credit for it. And we would help you argue, don't take those savings and put them somewhere else. Reinvest those savings in the physical facility. So we really are very close to our facility manager partners, and we're always ready to help you in any way we can. Next, please. This is a great story. Most, if not all, congregations often have a story about a long tradition of history, if not in the building itself, within the congregation. And Greencastle Baptist actually was started by freed slaves in July 1869 on the banks of the Ohio River in an old cabin. They are very proud of their history, and they have every right to be very, very proud of this current new facility, which has earned ENERGY STAR certification. It's in the upper quartile of all efficiency for American worship facilities. They did this with a certain amount of high efficiency lighting. In new construction, they put in new windows, which are expensive. They have a tight building envelope. They're not wasting conditioned air with air infiltration between inside outside. And they have a highly efficient HVAC system. They've done everything they could. And particularly, we like a lot to pay attention to controls. Next, please. Kind of the last step is recognizing achievement. We think of staff and volunteers need to be recognized in a worship service because what they're doing is consistent with the teachings of the faith tradition. They're making concrete contributions to realizing the faith tradition. They're putting back money into the ministry, into the mission with the savings, and they need to be recognized for this. And with the proper score and verification, apply for ENERGY STAR. So next slide, please. Just more of why we think it's so important to recognize achievement. We urge people these days to take the story to social media, get your youth group involved, tell the local news media, tell your ministerial alliance, your other congregations. You can inspire them with your example. Next, please. So the ultimate recognition, perhaps, at least from us, is this ENERGY STAR logo on the door. There are plaques. We're about to open a new web page with a vetted contractor where you can buy recycled aluminum plaques, banners, all kinds of ways to recognize and celebrate certification if you're able to get there. If you're looking at new construction, we have an architect on staff who will work with yours, and we call that designed to earn the ENERGY STAR, so that if you build it right, even before when you open the first day and don't have a utility bill yet, you'll still be ENERGY STAR certified. Next slide, please. We have 120 worship facilities that have earned certification. It's not easy to get. We don't make that the end-all be-all. We know that if you start with a low score and you make it better, and you make it better and better, you're doing all the right stuff. You may never get to a 75, but if you've taken it from a 35 to a 50 or a 60, you're saving money, you're preventing pollution, you're supporting human health and our natural ecosystems. We like to call out Michigan. Nearly half of all our certifications were in Michigan, and we tip our hat to Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, and to the U.S. Green Building Council, and to Detroit Edison, and all the players in Michigan that help make this happen. Now, this can happen in any state. In Virginia, we have a great example where the Episcopal Church in Newport News has earned the ENERGY STAR certification 8 times, 8 years. Also, on the right-hand side, in blue, we like to call out denominations whose headquarters, they're not worship facilities, they're office buildings that have earned ENERGY STAR certification. So you have the Christian Reformed Church and Presbyterian Church USA, and for Catholics, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Next slide, please. So here's the very steep slope on achieving 35,000 certifications plus over the last many years. Our benchmarking slope is very similar. Next, please. Something we're really excited about, we've been doing for about a year now, is denominations and archdioceses, dioceses, interfaith groups. On the left, you see an illustration of the Evangelical Environmental Network has co-branded the Action Workbook. The inside cover has their program information, and on the right is the Conference for Catholic Facility Management. They've co-branded this. It has their own information on the inside cover. We encourage our partners, the next page facing inside cover could be a full-page letter addressing the members of your denomination or your organization, talking about your ministry and your priorities. Next slide, please. We're going to switch gears here in a minute. There's some very timely things on everyone's minds today besides energy and water efficiency. EPA has a list online. We have a COVID-19 webpage. You will receive these slides. You'll have this hot link. We list disinfectants that EPA has determined are most safe and most effective. There's a general coronavirus website at EPA. And most recently, we've put out guidance on minimizing water stagnation and ensuring building water quality as we reopen buildings. So this could be important for facility managers. Our fellow federal agency, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, offers COVID-19 pandemic operational guidance for 2020 hurricane season. This is brand new. We have officially begun hurricane season, and you know, you've heard the term perfect storm. We're going to have hurricane season overlapping with COVID-19. We're going to be looking at flu season next fall. So there's a lot of things to consider. You've got a lot of responsibility in your worship facility. So they have general disaster and hurricane information. Our colleagues at the Institute for Real Estate Management have a wonderful guide. It's a checklist for reopening different building types at this link. So go take a look at that. It's very, very well done. Some other resources, especially for worship facilities. These are at Health and Human Services, our fellow federal agency. They have preventative practice and FAQs for faith-based community leaders on COVID-19. They have information on faith, community, and mental health during this time of pandemic. And they also have some really great posters and fact sheets for your family room or lobby. Next slide, please. So as we end today, what can you do? These are some screenshots from the home page for congregations, energystar.gov/congregations. You can download the action workbook. You can look at the way we co-brand. We invite cities and chambers of commerce and utilities. Tennessee Valley Authority is co-branded, some other utilities. There are a lot of ways to participate and a lot of resources here to grab. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll leave this up a minute. We're ready for questions, and Esther will help us. I think there's maybe been some questions asked that you would like to have us address. Here's my personal email and some of the web pages that you may want to take advantage of.
All right, thanks so much, Jerry, and thank you so much to Thayer for that great presentation. Before we get into the Q&A session, I did want to make note of another webinar that's coming up next week on Tuesday, June 16th at 1 p.m., and that's for saving energy and money with the ENERGY STAR Action Workbook for small businesses. So if you're interested in joining that webinar, a registration link will be sent out this afternoon along with a copy of the slides and a link to the recording as well.